My name is Paul Barrow. Welcome back into Tech Path. I want to thank our sponsor today, and then of course that is Coinbase. If you're looking to get started in your crypto journey, this is the place to go. Go over to Coinbase.com. You can get in there and start an account for your business, for your individual, and of course it's very easy to kind of get started whether you want to buy, sell, or hold your crypto. An excellent place to get it going. Use our link down below. It's going to give you a little bit of a bonus to get started, and you guys can do that. All right, so today we're going to get into a topic around Mythical Games. And as you guys have seen us talk about this before, and we've done a few videos of it. One we go back to Cathie Wood, of course, one of the lead investors, Ark Invest, on this. We've talked about this. We've also looked at things around their transaction numbers when it comes to NFT sales. Still one of the highest out there, just trailing Solana by not much. So if you look at some of the chain analytics, you can kind of see the project is growing pretty significantly on the Myth token. Just to give you a little bit of an idea, also just the marketplace, a net inflow up also. You look at active wallets, also a big jump we've seen here recently. Further into it, remember that they are associated with Polkadot. And one thing that we did start to see is a little bit of movement again with Polkadot. It kind of builds to the validity of where Polkadot is going with some of their strategies. So we'll get into that as well with their team. And then last up here is just to kind of give you an example. I'm going to go over here and showcase a little bit about this most recent volume and move that we're continuing to see around some of these NFTs. And that's the thing. We're seeing NFTs now that are starting to really kind of elevate the game here. And I think when you look at the market and what's happening with things like Pudgy Penguins, et cetera, all of this is correlated to really the growth of this next phase forward. I want to go to a clip here, and this is Luca Netz, who is the founder of Pudgy Penguins, and he's announcing a little bit of information here I think you guys will want to see. Take a look.
We have Pudgy World, which is our game that we're building, which I think the set date is like November 21st.
Okay.
So, you know, giving it some sort of like digital experience. We have another mobile game coming out that's going to be like a Stumble Guys for Penguins. Yeah. I've been working on that for quite a while, so I'm pretty excited about that. Right. So like, let's now go take some like franchise level swings. Netflix, Hulu, mobile games, Happy Meals. We're in, you know, Castle Parks and Chuck E. Cheese's around the country.
Are you really?
Yeah, we're going to announce some of that like pretty here soon. But
oh my God.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fucking brutal. So I hope you're doing okay. So in 5-10 years, dude, enjoy your fucking victory lap. But right now you're in the trenches.
Like Pudgy Penguins is one of those brands within the industry that has to win.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that was Luca Netz. We've talked about Pudgy Penguins before. A phenomenon in the IP space. They've made some major moves that have really kind of leveraged what's happening in the NFT world, but also in Web3. Part of that is in the gaming ecosystem. So I want to bring on the CEO of Mythos and Mythical Games, John Linden, to kind of break it all down. John, how are you?
Good. How are you doing? Thanks for having me, Paul.
Yeah. So let's get into a few things here. I want to kind of just go in a little bit around what you guys are doing with Polkadot. Obviously, we're getting into some of the game development that you guys are partaking in. What can you give us kind of a rundown on first of all, where you are today?
Yeah, so I mean, in particular with Polkadot, so we're fully migrated over there. You know, this is actually, we've been around for a little while. This is actually our third set of chain tech over the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And I think it's not really it's been an evolution, to be really honest, of kind of where we've seen. We started off on EOS, which was kind of this first, kind of proof of stake network, which we thought was the right decision over the proof of work networks back in, 4 or 5 years ago. We then kind of moved to a sidechain EVM chain because we were seeing so much growth. We wanted to make sure we could handle it. We were doing partnerships with Apple and Google, and we really had a lot of concerns around, could any of these chains take on this volume? And we really got to learn kind of what was working there, how to optimize that. And we have moved recently to the Polkadot ecosystem. So we are a kind of a substrate chain. We still do have an EVM address space. We felt that was very important to kind of keep that EVM address space. But we've been growing nicely. I think we're still one of the top, actually the top gaming chain in terms of sales volume, top gaming chain in terms of number of active buyers and all that. And we're just kind of getting started. We have a lot of things coming up.
I was looking at one of the slides that was presented by the Polkadot team, and this was in reference to Polystream and your acquisition of them back in December of 2021. First of all, explain what Polystream does and why it's a benefit to what you guys are trying to do overall.
Yeah, definitely. So Polystream is a really interesting set of technologies, and I think if you think about the entertainment industry right now, if you want movies, they're on demand, right? You can instantly stream a movie. You want music, it's on demand. You can instantly stream music. If you want a video game, you got to download 60 or 70 gigabytes to your hard drive and hope you have enough hard drive space.
Right.
And then every time you log in, there's a 2 or 3 gigabyte update. So the industry will go to cloud gaming. It's just going to be the kind of the next evolution of games. The challenge, though, Paul, is it's doable right now, but it is, and it's just not even close to cost effective, right? Because with a game, you have to have a dedicated GPU per player. So if I wanted 1 million people in my game right now, I'd have to have 1 million GPUs in the cloud, and those run $2.50 an hour, something like that. So you'd be out $2.5 million an hour with the current set of technologies on cloud gaming. So what Polystream's done is very different. They basically have, instead of pixel streaming, which is what kind of NVIDIA and Xbox and other groups use, they do what they call command streaming. So they're basically taking the game data that flows through the APIs, like a DirectX or whatever, compresses that down and shoots it to your local GPU on your mobile phone, your PC, your Mac, and uses that local GPU. So what it ends up doing is you end up getting the ability to stream games and the ability to have cloud gaming, but without the cost. You can use commodity CPU hardware. And we even think there's even a path further to decentralize that. So you end up having this kind of very decentralized cloud infrastructure that every 3D application can run on.
So that kind of changes the whole landscape, really. If you look at the opportunity here, is there anything else that you guys are planned to do with this technology other than what you're doing right now with the gaming side?
Yeah, so I think we actually, like I said, we've come from the game industry. We have 20 years of experience in the game industry, so we've seen a lot of those trends. And what's really exciting is a lot of trends that come into gaming are permanent. They'll never go back. And I think we're in the middle of the next 3 sets of transformations in the gaming industry. One is economies. What we're seeing with the Mythical Marketplace and the Mythos chain and the Myth token, it's working, and I'm happy to go through some of that later. But it is definitely working. It's making a big impact for players and game developers alike. So that's kind of the first step, is that decentralized economy. We think decentralized social is going to be really powerful. I think social, how you interact and how you come up. There's no game company in the world that, no matter how many live events you plan, the community is going to plan more, right? And I think there's a way to kind of decentralize that social infrastructure so that anybody can start, kind of building communities and tournaments and all that around games. And the third area we do think is going to be the infrastructure, the distribution of games. I think the app stores will become less important over time. They're going to be around for a long time, right? They have a lot of devices. But the idea of you and I saying, hey, we're chatting in an app right now, let's immediately jump into that game, is super powerful. And it'll change how games are distributed. So that's kind of the way we view things of the next 3 sets of technology, is kind of economy tech, streaming tech, social tech.
When you look at, all right, so I want to go to Pudgy Party, because obviously this is one of the games that you guys are, so you're obviously launching this. When you look at what your strategy is with this and how this may bring in the Web 2 innovators out there, whether it's the dev houses, a lot of the game developers, as well as some of the distributors and some of the major players in it, is this one of the key things that you think will bridge that gap?
I think the thing I love about Pudgy Party and Pudgy Penguins in general, one, Luca Netz is, I think, just a marketing genius. I mean, that guy has figured it out. He knows how to do it. He's also one of the biggest hustlers I've seen in the space. That guy never stops working. He's amazing. And that's the type of person you want to partner with. So I love what they've done in the Web3 side. I think Pudgy Penguins is already a triple threat, right? They're enormous in what they've done on the PFP side, right? $400-500 million in secondary sales. They've been enormous on the retail side. I mean, you hear every 3 or 4 months, they have a new major retail partner that are selling toys, and these toys are really becoming a very popular mainstream item. And then they've been really, really innovative around the social side. I don't know if you've heard the Giphy, where you're sending Giphy images to each other. They're one of the top brands in the world. I think they're at like 35 billion impressions. I think they're doing more than Disney is right now. So they're already kind of this triple threat. And Luca and team are just remarkable, remarkable forces, I think, in the industry. And we wanted to come in and say, hey, let's build that next mass market game. And I think this is a game that is not, it's bringing the Web3 IP into this traditional world. And I think this is a game that could have 50 to 100 million players worldwide. They've done such a great job, and we want to basically help them get that out to the mainstream on what we've already learned from games like NFL Rivals. Obviously,
we're going to see some of the major players out there. You've got to look at Tim Sweeney and what's going on with Epic. Why would we not see Tim Sweeney ready to maybe finally come over into this Web3 ecosystem of where game, and especially cloud gaming is going to be going in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a couple companies, right, that could be doing it. I don't think they have to do it right now because they have, people kind of talk about the closed gardens. They have one of the biggest gardens in the world, right? So they don't necessarily need other people in there yet. I think I've spoken to Tim several times, and Kim, their CTO, and all that. They're definitely thinking through their version of this, right? I think it's a little bit more closed right now. I think it's they want to kind of keep it within the Epic ecosystem, which is their absolute right to do that. I think you look at Roblox, kind of similar things, right? We've come in a little bit different. I truly believe it should be open over time, right? I think if you truly want to have the creator economy that can become trillions of dollars of revenue and goods, digital goods traded, which I do think it can become that. I think it does have to ultimately be open. I think you need, and we're already starting to see some brands now. It's really interesting, Paul, is that a couple of years ago at Blankos, we had a lot of brands we were working with. The idea of paying them in a wallet, like, well, give us a wallet and you'll have all these transactions just flow through from a smart contract. There was zero takers, even a couple of years ago. Now we're starting to see some of the major brands are like, well, we'll put our wallet in there. We'll start collecting our commissions and that type of stuff. And I think you're seeing that side of the business catch up. And I think over time, you're going to see all of them want to be able to audit it themselves. They can see exactly the transactions. All the principles of Web3 become critical. And I'm not, I'm talking more of the big brands right now, but I think if you're, an artist in South Africa, you're going to want those same principles, right? And you're going to want to know, frankly, that a shareholder base can't be like, hey, we're changing that commission on you because we need a slightly higher quarter this quarter, right? Which is kind of what can happen in Web2. I'm not saying that it does, but it's in their power to change it or change the payout rates or however they want to do it. I think the next phase of this evolution in content is going to be open, and that's where we're really focused on.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I was looking at the game developer site. Epic Games officially now cool with using a lot of their past games and archiving them. So I'm kind of curious, if they were to archive some of these, you put these on the blockchain eventually, I would think they could possibly go to the blockchain. There's a possibility of bringing a lot of those old games into Web3 environments, much like what you guys are doing with Mythical Games. Do you see that as maybe a future opportunity down the road with some of these older games?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think there's, it's really interesting. You kind of mentioned the Polystream tech. We put out a demo out there, and I think you might have shown a clip of it. We haven't actually publicly really put it out there outside of a few talks. But what I wanted to do with Polystream as an example, right, is, okay, everybody talks about this metaverse concept, right? And to me, metaverse could be Roblox right now. By some people's definition, it could be, Epic Unreal Game Engine. It could be all types of things. And for me, it's 3D meets 3D, and the consumers control it, right? And so to me, we did a demo with Polystream that was really fascinating, right? There's two major game engines in the world. There's Unity and Unreal. And we wanted to do a demo saying, what if we could actually have you walk from one game to another game completely seamlessly? And then ultimately, a Web 3D becomes your identity, right? As I move from one experience to another experience across different game engines, that's the connective tissue that you own, right? And I think that was a powerful demo to where literally we have a demo of our game Blankos. It's in Unity. Inside of Blankos, there's a kind of a portal that opens, Doctor Strange style, and you can literally walk into the other game without ever leaving the game client. I didn't have anything downloaded, and I can walk from one world to another. So that's kind of our view, is that ultimately the connective tissue for us is that Web3 credentials, right? It's having your key there. I think for companies like Epic and Roblox, they just have a little bit different perspective of it right now, right? For Epic, it's more the Unreal Engine is the key. It's the key connector. Roblox, it's your account and your avatars. That's the key. So I think everybody has a little bit different opinion. Our opinion is it should be open, and it shouldn't be limited to any development platform, any wallet eventually. It really becomes a way for users to control that. And that's kind of the direction we're hoping to take Polystream.
Yeah, in the clip we showed of Luca, he mentioned the idea of distribution coming through the majors. He mentioned Netflix. Obviously, you guys' experience with Amazon, especially with Blankos. What about future projects with someone like an Amazon, especially now that they are doing a lot more cloud gaming, and this seems to be a natural evolution of where some of the projects that you're working on could go?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've had a lot of, there's a lot of Amazon to deal with, right? There's a lot of different phases of Amazon. We were one of the first ones to integrate with Twitch. They allowed us to do kind of an NFT drop with Twitch with Blankos back in the day. So we had a big integration with them. We've had integrations with Amazon Prime Gaming. We've traditionally stayed on their gaming side. I think Amazon's still trying to figure out the exact strategy of how they want to attack gaming, which is great. But we're we're always open to ideas there. I think Amazon's always going to be a powerhouse and always going to be somebody you want to pay attention to for entertainment.
Talk to me about where NFL Rivals is right now. Obviously, very well accepted. This is one of the, I think, the winners of what you guys have been able to do, and probably has put you on the map here. Give me a breakdown of what you see happening, especially around sports entertainment.
Yeah, so Rivals has been an amazing franchise for us. It will be a franchise. I'll leave you that a little information there. So there'll be some other we're talking to right now. But what's really fascinating about NFL was really a couple things. I'll just throw some data at you, which was the most impressive. Is last year, when our first year, we launched Rivals, we ended up getting close to 5 million players in the game. So to put that in perspective, Madden is kind of the incumbent. They've been around for what I think 36, 37 years now, a long time. And they're sitting about, on the mobile side at least, they're sitting about 25 million players a year. And we've come in at 5 to 6 million already in 14 months. So we've taken a little over 20% or grown to about 20% of their market share, which is great. And there's some overlap. But we've been able to get there within 12 to 14 months. So that's really exciting. The other part that's been really exciting too is we did bring a new game in the genre with the NFL that does have a Web3 component, right? And what's awesome about that is, users will come up with their own ratings, right? And right now we're sitting at about a 4.8 star in the App Store, and they're sitting at a 4.7. And really what that means, besides the fact that we're a tenth of a point ahead of them, besides that, though, what it really means, though, is users are accepting the ideas of Web3, right? This is hundreds of thousands of reviews by consumers, and we're rated higher than the incumbent, right? So it just basically means if you do it right and you integrate it with value, consumers will definitely get behind it, which is exciting. The other piece that's really fascinating is last year, in our first year, about 20% of our revenue came from the Web3 trading side, right, where people are trading items with each other. And about 80% came from the traditional Apple, Google in-app purchases. This year's a little bit different, right? It's now almost 70% is coming from Web3 from the same user base, and 20 or 30% is coming from Web2. So why is that, right? And I think this is the key innovation that NFL's allowed us to do, and we'll be bringing this to Pudgy Party and a new sports title and a bunch of things we're bringing out in the future here. It's really a concept called quick trade. So quick trade for us, if you look at every game over the last 20 years, if you look at the peer-to-peer trading, right, there's always two windows, right? One is this is what I want, and this is what I'll give you. It's not bids and asks and floor prices and collection values and what's the token trading at right now. It's this is what I want, and this is what I'll give you. So what we've been able to do with that, we introduced a patented tech we call quick trades. So in our game NFL, if I wanted Patrick Mahomes or I wanted Travis Kelce, he's not for sale right now. The only way I can get him is from somebody else. And some of those do get up there. We're not selling $50,000 digital items generally. We're selling, 20, 30 on average. Maybe I can get up into a few hundreds. So I'll take the more extreme one, like a Patrick Mahomes might be $500. Well, most gamers will not put $500 on their credit card or crypto. They're not financial traders. They're not, crypto traders. And it's hard for somebody to put $500 on a credit card for a digital item. So we added a concept to mimic how gamers trade called quick trades, to where now I can say, I'm going to put Patrick Mahomes, he's $500. And then the other side of the screen shows up with all the digital assets I do own. And I can start checking them off. So I always seem to offend somebody with this, but I'll say I'm going to pick some of the Green Bay Packers. I don't want the Packers anymore. I picked 5 Green Bay Packers saying, hey, I'm ready to get rid of these. And what our tech does is it basically prices them in real time. So it's getting active bids from the marketplace and it's pricing them in real time. So if I say, cool,
okay,
$100 on this side, $500 on this side, I can hit trade. I, as a player now, have received Patrick Mahomes and I got rid of my 5 Green Bay Packers. No money exchange hands.
Right.
But what we actually did behind the scenes is we pulled all the cohorts together into one atomic Web3 transaction. So we real-time bought Mahomes from one seller and we real-time sold those 5 Green Bay Packers to 5 different buyers. That part has been revolutionary. We've seen massive growth because now we're transacting the way gamers transact in games, but in adding that Web3 component to bring value to the player, the game developer, everybody involved.
Yeah, I think that kind of strategy, you look at just the amount of in-game assets that are going to be generated, that's a great ability to be able to kind of manipulate the marketplace, so to speak, for high-level assets like what you're talking about and explaining there. Wow, so that's available right now?
That's been in the game since
NFL okay.
The spring. So we kind of brought it out kind of January, February, right before the playoffs. And the reason, again, it just took us a while to kind of get it out there. But now that it's out there in season 2, it's a big percentage of revenue growing.
Interesting. Okay. I was looking over on your site. on one of the posts that you guys had put up, and there was a statement in here that I thought was interesting. Let me kind of zoom up on this for our viewers. Most players use fiat currency purchasing digital assets, secondary market. Behind the scenes, this is done through a licensed third-party entity. I want to find out what that is, and that fiat is exchanged for native myth. So explain that sentence right there, because this is a very intriguing idea.
So this has allowed us to work with the Apples and Googles. You know, I think we're the only approved secondary market solution in games by Apple and Google. So most people have to do the secondary outside of the game. We can actually do it directly in the game itself. So how do we do that, right? Well, we're not letting you buy the crypto and things like that right in the game directly, right? There's all types of rules and regulations around how do you kind of exchange any type of value. So what we've basically done is we've taken a virtual currency in the game. So if you buy an item, it's the same items available from NFL that you can buy on the web or buy through a marketplace. You can buy them in the game, but it's through a virtual currency. And so what we do is you buy that virtual currency through the game itself. It sits in an account that we don't own. And then basically in real time, as I'm going to use that currency, it gets converted through a licensed partner that has all the licenses, all the MTLs, all the eBank licenses, all that. They actually take the money, convert it into the currency, and then the smart contract takes it and interacts with it. So kind of a just-in-time exchange. When it needs to be on the chain, it'll do that work for you. And we've done that, and it's allowed us to kind of work very heavily with Apple and Google. And again, it's a very seamless process for consumers. They can just come in and transact, you know.
Man, you guys are into a lot of things right now. I mean, you've got a lot going under the hood too. I want to jump over to this one. This is Nitro Nation. This is just showing some of the potential here of where we see the racing ecosystem. You look at, projects like Rev, many of those. What about potential collaborations with some of those kinds of projects that are out there right now doing very well?
Yeah, so Nitro Nation is the first game that's built on the Mythical platform. So the games you talked about, kind of Blankos and even Pudgy Party and NFL, we're involved in the development as well, and we call that Mythical Studios. Mythical platform is basically the same business model used by third parties. And Nitro Nation is the first title that went on the Mythical platform. So they're still using the Mythos chain. It uses the Myth token. It uses the Mythical marketplace, but we didn't make this game. What I love about CM Games, the game is getting ready to kind of really take off. It's still in soft launch right now. The game is going to go big basically in Q1. And it's a beautiful game. CM Games they're experts in car games. Their last game, also called Nitro Nation, it was called Nitro Nation Dragon Drift. That game had about 80 million plus players in it. So we're excited that we have, very reputable, strong game developers now that are building and bringing their games into this ecosystem. So it's a great game. I think we've also helped them a little bit on the publishing side. We're helping them get through some of this because it's still fairly new on the Web3. But yeah, I think they already have about, I want to say it's well over 100 cars licensed for that game. And you can also see there's a lot of creativity. You can mix and match and customize your cars to your heart content. And I think that lends itself very well to the concepts of Web3 and digital identity and all those principles. It works great. And that's one thing I'd love to kind of say real quick, if it's okay, is that so many people, I think in Web3 always talk about games in Web3 is all about profit. It's all about buying and selling and players making money and all that. I don't think that's really the case. I think if you think about the last 10 or 15 years of games, it's about identity, right? Think about Roblox, even about Call of Duty, a game I used to be involved with and worked on, is it's peacocking, right? It's you want to have the coolest stuff because it's part of your identity. And we're seeing that same thing in Web3. The difference is in an open ecosystem like that, the community's valuing it for you, right? So we've seen, I'll kind of mention, if I got a Travis Kelce card that I earned in the game that's sellable, you don't see let's say it's going for $1,000. The community is valuing that. The open ecosystem's valuing that. And it's not that you see everybody rush off and try and sell it for $1,000, right? We see a lot of people that are like, oh, my collection value just went up by $1,000, right? So it becomes kind of this extended value of your digital identity. And I think that's where it becomes very powerful. And things like racing and all of these very social games, it's going to be a big driver of like, this is valuable to me.
I'm looking at, this is just Call of Duty integrating a little bit of some of the scenarios that you're talking about, which we could see tokens and all sorts of things going in on that. I want to talk a little bit about, because I think, the fact that you've got a platform here, are you seeing a lot more developers starting to come on? I was looking on your website, I think it was Let's go over to that section right here. Yeah, so there's Ubisoft. Those are game developers, Marble X, etc. What about the potential of expanding upon this? Are there more partners lined up? What's going on there?
I think, Paul, that's one of the most exciting things I've seen over the last 12 months is that, I think for some game developers, they're like, they're slow to move. And because games are really, really tough to make. Games are very hard to make. They're harder to ship, and they're even harder to keep out and keep them profitable, right? So there's not a lot of ideas that usually will hit a new game. It's kind of like, you hear this all the time, right? Oh, it's Fortnite-like. We're building a Fortnite meets this, right? Or we're building a Souls-like game that does this, right? There's a reason for that because it's a slow innovation path. But what we have seen is now we're seeing games like NFL Rivals that are seeing 65% more revenue from Web3. That's waking people up super fast. And I think what we're seeing now is we're seeing the big game developers now are starting to be like, this is real. This isn't a gimmick. This actually can have real effects. And consumers are actually accepting it, right? And I think, as I mentioned before, that rating in the App Store, I think that's one of the most important things for game developers is they don't want to put out a game and they get one star because it looks like some weird scam, right? But we're seeing it now, hundreds of thousands of reviews, millions of players, significant increases in revenue. We're now starting to see the real game developers get behind this.
I think, well, this is a huge breakthrough. I think this is an opportunity that we are going to see a lot more major game devs starting to come into this space. And, we've already seen some, big wins over on, even if you look at the Avalanche ecosystem with what they've done with Off the Grid. I mean, there's a lot happening right now. Do you think this is the cycle right now, John? I mean, as far as people really exploring the Web3 foundation?
Yeah, I think so. I think, it depends on the cycle you're talking about, right? The token cycle seems to go with whatever the token cycle goes with, right? Which seems to be very heavy, still focused on things like meme coins and all like that. We're using the slogan, fundamentals matter, right? And I really do believe fundamentals matter, right? We've been saying kind of follow the players, fundamentals matter. And I think that's important for this next cycle, right? Yep. Where there's real consumers driving value, where there's real consumers that are buying a token behind the scenes for regardless of the price because they just want to buy, a football player or a Pudgy Penguin or whatever, right? When you can get those consumers into the millions or tens of millions or eventually hundreds of millions that are participating in those economies, fundamentals matter, right? And I think
for sure.
We're going to develop fundamentals in a major way.
Speaking of fundamentals, obviously, when you guys leaped over onto Polkadot, and I think the opportunity here is pretty big, when you look at the scalability of what this chain offers, the potential for roadmap, what does that look like for you guys now? Has it opened up an opportunity map for you guys that maybe didn't exist before? What are some of the key things that you feel is going to kind of come from this?
Yeah, we got this question a lot. I actually, like I said, from a technology perspective, I think Polkadot's the best game in town. I think from an actual innovation and what they're doing, I think it's the best game in town. And I think they have some challenges too. They're not a heavily marketed chain. They're not kind of throwing out crazy amounts of money to different people to see what happens. They're being very smart, and they have a very large treasury, but they're being very calculated on how they do it. And I think that's the right way to go, personally. But from a tech perspective, I think not only are they there now, but I think Gavin is already kind of way ahead of where everybody's going next, right? And I think you'll see there's a lot of people kind of copying the concepts of what they started with parachains, right? The whole super chain, super nets. Polkadot kind of did it first, right? Polkadot and Cosmos were probably the original two. So while they're kind of catching up, I think Polkadot's moving on to the next generation, this whole concept of jam. And that really, because as I mentioned before, remember, if you start thinking about not just DeFi and gaming, you start thinking about decentralized social and decentralized compute power and decentralized gaming cloud serving, where Gavin's taken Jam is really, it's a supercomputer, right? It's a decentralized AWS, honestly, more so than just a decentralized DeFi chain. And I believe very much in that vision. And that's really one of the reasons we chose it, right? Is we don't view this as just marketplace transactions for gaming. We view it as all of these systems coming together and letting the player have the keys to the kingdom, right?
Right. Well, that's a huge evolution. I think that a lot of people are starting to finally get their heads around, not only in the business side, of productivity, but obviously gaming is a big part of this, but there'll be other, categories in markets out there around business that understand what decentralized cloud compute are going to look like, especially as we see Web3 kind of make its mark on this point, for sure. Last topic to you. When is the next airdrop? So we were looking at Mythical Forest. You guys had that airdrop. So next one.
These are those things that it's always a little uncomfortable for us because we hadn't seen this in Web 2 before and hadn't seen this kind of play. So we definitely did one. It worked well. I think we had a lot of great stuff happening there. I think the next one's going to be more focused on games. You know, we definitely want to do another one and really focus on, you know, people actually interacting with it. I think all of these projects, you end up seeing this crazy concept of farming and people trying to scam the system a little bit. So we definitely got our handful of people trying to manipulate the system, and we learned a lot from that. But the next one will be very much focused on games. We have so many great games coming. We have so many game developers that are now starting to build on Myth. And what I love about it is it all is coming through the Mythos chain. It's all using the Myth token. So Pudgy and a new sports game we're going to be announcing soon, and NFL and Blankos, they all use the same tech behind the scenes. And not only just us, but there's 32 other companies that have joined Mythos already in various stages, right? So, you know, I'm not a big fan of kind of single game tokens. I don't think they have staying power if you're just one token. I believe very heavily in ecosystem tokens. And that's kind of what we were trying to do with Mythos chain. And the Myth token is really having this concept that everybody can play together and everybody can define where we go as a group, whether it's social gaming, game economies, or eventually cloud gaming ecosystems.
Yeah, Cathie Wood has to be excited about that. That's a lot on the table in terms of potential growth here. So
she's a big supporter. We love Cathie, and you know, honestly, I think she sees it. I think that's what I love about her is she sees the future. She sees how this can play together. Now, you know, we're being very cautious and we're doing step at a time. We're not launching it all at once, but that's definitely the vision. And I think what you'll see is these three kind of trifectas of technology start piecing together. And I think what will happen is when that last piece kind of clicks in, everybody's going to be like, oh my God, that's amazing. You know, and we're kind of bringing that industry experience and working on how do we do it next best. So
what is your thoughts on how that might cycle through in terms of some of the big investors that could be coming into this next phase?
Yeah, I think it is fascinating. I think this is also where you know, there's been some projects. One of my good friends is with the Ocean Protocol, and they have this kind of new fetch token, this super token across AI. I think that's really innovative. There's some interesting concepts there of like, how do you create super tokens or have networks? Again, we're kind of doing that with the Myth token now, and we're kind of slow and steady, right? It's we're proving it out. We're proving it out with real fundamentals, and I think that's key. You know, we just have a new DAO governance proposal that now has a deflationary supply, right? So we're collecting gas fees. We now have enough players in the millions of players to really make macro decisions in terms of what's the right gas fees for this.
Right.
What's the right things that aren't going to bankrupt the chain, bankrupt the developer, bankrupt the consumer, right? I mean, it's really now, we want to make sure it's a balanced ecosystem. And I think we have that. So we just announced, you know, we're 7xing the gas fee because we got it too low, right? So, and then now we're going to be burning those gas fees, right? So as we do things like that and we change those tokenomics, you're going to see a very advantageous. I think we're going to have the first deflationary game economy with the Myth token and the Myth ecosystem that big investors can get behind. You know, they can stay behind, right? Yeah. And have it so it's actually sustainable, right? Yeah, and I think as we do that, Paul, you're going to see all types of new investors jump in because now it's not just an asset class, but they can really see the future and see what the true value of that is as we're bringing on hundreds of millions of consumers into the ecosystem.
That should, that'll definitely, no pun intended, change the game for sure. I think we're in a one of those cycles where just the innovation is finally becoming a point where not only investors but players, economies, brands are starting to realize, this is going to work. So, hey, John Linden, it's great having you on the show. Thanks so much for stopping in today. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. All right, if you guys are not tuned in over on YouTube, jump over here right now. It's just Paul Barron Network. You'll find us over there. Maybe you're listening to the audio podcast side of this show, but you can also get over here and join the Diamond Circle. That's our own private group. It's very easy to join. Click the link down below. And of course, catch me out there on X, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.